WADR, promoting dialogue. It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 o'clock in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Burkina Faso's Transitional Assembly dissolves the Independent Electoral Commission. Ivorian Civil Society Convention recommends transparency in Côte d'Ivoire's future election.
The CSI asks to strengthen the securitization of the electoral process to guarantee transparency of the future scrutineers.
Malian government launches new electronic biometric passport to modernize its official documents and boost travel security. Reactions trail Cameroon's President Biya's re-election amid reported protests.
So Cameroonians fell for him because they needed change. When he comes to power, based on the promises he gave or he will give during the campaign, he will start questioning his administration.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast this evening. We begin in the Central Sahel region, particularly Burkina Faso, where the Independent National Electoral Commission, CENI, has been dissolved. This decision followed the unanimous adoption of a bill by the Transitional Legislative Assembly on Tuesday. The legislation consists of 5 articles which outline the dissolution of the Electoral Commission, mandate the transfer of all of its missions and powers to the Ministry of Territorial Administration, including its assets, archives, and documents. Articles 4 and 5 concern the repeal of previous provisions and the enforceability of the new regulations, respectively. Abdullahi Hassan tells us more.
According to the Minister of State and Territorial Administration, Emile Zerbo, this reform aims to strengthen institutional coherence with the Transition Charter and to rationalize the functioning of the state. He explained that the ministry conducted a study of existing institutions and found that the CENI no longer corresponded to current socio-political realities in addition to being budget-consuming. The CENI's annual operating budget, estimated at nearly 500 million CFA francs outside of election periods, was deemed excessive in a context of budgetary austerity. Minister Zerbo clarified that this decision is in line with the National Conference of May 25, 2024, which recommended greater streamlining of state structures and extending the duration of the transition. Regarding the 104 CENI agents, including 3 contract workers, a committee has been set up to oversee the transfer and reassignment of human and material resources. Created in 2004, the CENI has long been the central body for organizing elections in Burkina Faso. With its dissolution, this mission now falls to the Ministry of Territorial Administration in accordance with the new institutional architecture defined by the transition.
Abdullahi Hassan with that report. For more electoral matters, let's turn to Côte d'Ivoire. The Ivorian Civil Society Convention, CSI, reviewed its observations a day after the provisional results of the presidential election. In its conclusion, the CSI commended the electoral process and stated that the vote overall took place calmly and peacefully. It also highlighted a few reported incidents at some voting centers and recommended a series of measures for future elections. The Ivorian Civil Society Convention, which brings together more than 250 citizen organizations, says it covered more than 700 polling stations throughout the country. According to the organization, it deployed more than 250 observers for the October 25 polls. Mahamadou Kouma, president of the Board of Directors of the Ivorian Civil Society Convention, spoke with WADR in Abidjan.
La mission d'observation électorale de la CSI a collecté des données sur le terrain. The CSI Electoral Observation Mission has collected data on the ground from open formulae on the progress and closeness of the polling stations, as well as the general environment of the election. And the operational team based in Abidjan has collected, centralized and processed this data from a digital application. We, the Ivorian Civil Society Convention, consider that these elections were democratic, fair, transparent, and in line with international standards. Consequently, the CSI makes the following recommendations. At the level of the government authorities, the CSI asks to strengthen the securitization of the electoral process in order to guarantee transparency, the equity and credibility of the future scrutineers, to continue the inclusive dialogue with all the socio-political actors to promote a climate of trust and sustainable peace. At the place of political groups and parties, to show restraint and a sense of responsibility in their actions and speeches, to privilege a dialogue and consultation in the resolution of different policies.
Mahamadou Kuma is president of the board of directors of the Ivorian Civil Society Convention. Meanwhile, life in Cote d'Ivoire is returning to normal following the announcement of the provincial presidential election results. In Abidjan, the economic capital and political center, many residents were concerned about the possibility of post-election violence. Fortunately, that fear did not materialize. Activities resumed calmly and peacefully this Tuesday. Sankula Janko has the details in this report.
Within the cafeteria in the Angre district of Kokodi, Frankie Yapi, sitting at a table, waits for his breakfast to be served. He resumed his activities this Tuesday morning and is relieved that the presidential election took place without post-election violence. He now hopes for a peaceful Côte d'Ivoire and one that is even stronger economically.
Before the elections, we were really stressed, but now the elections are over. We are really very happy that everything went well. I want an Ivory Coast that will move forward in peace. Regarding the economic situation for the population with the president, I think he will think about all these difficulties. Everyone will be calm. Everyone will have their daily bread.
Across from this cafeteria, two communication students from an Abidjan university are debating the political future of their country. The first hopes that the next government will give more opportunities to young people.
Well, I would like the president to involve youth in his new government. It could encourage us to be more interested in politics, because youth weren't really part of the Ivory Coast politics. But with his new government, if he can involve youth, it could help us and maybe end the work he started.
The second hopes for a government of national unity to strengthen peace in the country.
They have to put the people of the opposition in power. Normally, they have to put the people, the PPACI, the PDCI in power. That way, it will be better for all of us. That way, there will be a social cohesion.
In the working class district of Yopougon, which is favorable to the opposition, people prefer not to comment. The re-election of President Alassane Ouattara is a non-event for many residents.
Sankula Janko filed that report. In Benin, the Constitutional Council has rejected an appeal filed by the opposition Democrats Party. The court's decision on Monday means that the party of former President Boni Yayi will not participate in the 2026 presidential election. The court thus confirmed the invalidation of the two candidates from the Democrats. In its ruling, the court found that the provisional list drawn up by the Electoral Commission had not violated either the Constitution or the Electoral Code.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We now take you to Cameroon, where tensions remain high following the re-election of President Paul Biya. The 92-year-old leader has been declared winner of the October 12 presidential election, securing just over 53% of the votes, according to the country's Constitutional Council. President Paul Biya's victory extends his more than 4 decades in power, making him one of the world's longest-serving leaders. But his re-election has sparked widespread protests and sharp criticisms from opposition parties and civil society groups. Major cities, including Yaoundé, Douala, and Gaoua, have seen demonstrations, roadblocks, and clashes between protesters and security forces. Rights groups have condemned what they describe as excessive use of force, calling for restraint and the release of detained demonstrators. Opposition leader Issa Chiroman has rejected the results, describing the vote as a masquerade, and insists his party's tally shows he won the election. WADR spoke with Cameroonian journalist Frida Leyinan-Voma with Dream FM 88.9 in Bui.
They want a change because the incumbent president has been there for 43 years, meaning plus 43 years. He must have ruled Cameroon for 2.5 decades. So Cameroonians, what they need change. That is why many of them did rally behind some opposition leaders, especially the one that became popular months to the election day. Election was on the 12th of October. Mr. Issa Chiroma Bakari, one-time Minister of Communication, one-time Minister of Vocational Training and Employment. So Cameroonians fell for him because they needed change. Okay. And in an interview I had some Cameroonians, I asked them daily how much do they know about Mr. Issa Chiroma Bakari. They said for now they need that change. When he comes to power, based on the promises he gave or he will give during the campaign, they will start questioning his administration from that. Then what they need now, they Cameroonians don't just need a change. So they find themselves so frustrated. And I would say majority of Cameroonians whom we spoke to in the streets, in their offices, in their markets, they told us before time that they need a change. And they see Mr. Issa Chiroma Bakari as the person who can bring the change first.
Cameroonian journalist Frida Leyinan-Voma speaking with WADR. Now, away from politics, let's take you to Nigeria, where resident doctors have announced plans to embark on an indefinite nationwide strike beginning on November 1. The association says the decision follows the federal government's failure to address long-standing welfare and training issues despite a 30-day ultimatum. WADR's Usma Umar reports from Abuja.
The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, says its members will begin an indefinite strike on Friday, November 1, 2025, after what it described as the federal government's failure to meet its key demands. The decision was taken at the end of a 5-hour extraordinary National Executive Council meeting held in Abuja. NARD President Dr. Mohammed Suleiman said the association's National Officers Committee has been mandated to ensure full compliance and enforce the strike across all health centers in the country.
This is the first time NAD is declaring a total action after 3 years. The last time we had a strike that lasted more than 48 hours was 3 years ago. So we were ready for that. We've been dialoguing for 3 years. But we have arrived here, looking for too much to just collect the basic minimum salaries. Our allowances, our due. We're not asking for new things. These are things we have agreed. Pay it. You have refused. Mr. President, they have been paying themselves their own salaries and allowances. It is us that are in the field working that they are not paying.
Dr. Suleiman accused some government actors of what he called exploitative policies against resident doctors and urged members to hand over patients and sensitize the public ahead of the action. The NARD warning comes after several short-term strikes in recent years over similar welfare disputes that disrupted medical services across Nigeria. Analysts say an indefinite strike this time could paralyze the country's fragile healthcare system and spill over into neighboring West African states, as many patients from border regions depend on Nigerian hospitals for specialized care. For now, all attention is on the federal government to respond to the demands of the doctors in good time to avert the looming disruption to hospital services with its attendant consequences. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Burkina Faso's Transitional Assembly dissolves Independent Electoral Commission. Ivorian Civil Society Convention recommends transparency in Côte d'Ivoire's future election. Still ahead in the news, Malian government launches new electronic biometric passport to modernize its official documents and boost travel security, while Senegalese government highlights plans to lower electricity and petroleum products costs. We also have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for being with us. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. to matters of education. In Mali, the suspension of academic activities for 2 weeks by the authorities is provoking strong reactions. While some consider the government's decision necessary, others fear it will have serious consequences for the school calendar, which was already disrupted from the start by a teachers' strike. The suspension, announced 2 days ago, comes as the country grapples with a severe fuel shortage caused by attacks on fuel tankers by the JNIM armed group. Christopher Waticho completes the story.
Having only just resumed classes barely a month ago, schools and universities are now facing another disruption. This decision was made by the authorities due to the fuel shortage that is paralyzing several cities across the country. In Bamako, many fear a further delay in the school and university calendar.
This will significantly impact students who are in exam classes. They had only just begun returning to school after a long break. Now with this suspension, they are bound to fall even further behind. The real question we need to ask is whether these 2 weeks will actually give the government enough time to put measures in place so that we don't end up in the same situation again.
On the other hand, some Malians believe that this forced break was necessary in a context of uncertainty. However, they feel that this suspension should not affect the entire country.
The decision by the authorities to suspend classes in schools and universities is, in my opinion, a good move. The issue of assessing fuel is a significant challenge, and I believe this decision should not apply to the entire country, as there are still areas unaffected by this problem. Shutting down all schools across the country, for me, is not the right course of action.
While the measure is generating controversy, parents remain concerned about the fate of their children.
Children staying at home pose additional challenges. Without being actively engaged, they risk missing out on a significant portion of their education, which could heavily impact their future. The government must implement specific measures for schools.
For its part, the government is trying to reassure the public and promises a revised schedule and a normal resumption of classes on November 10. Meanwhile, the fuel crisis continues to disrupt the daily lives of Malians, affecting the transport sector the most.
Christopher, teacher, reporting there. Meanwhile, Mali has launched a new EAES biometric passport, marking a major step in modernizing its official documents and boosting travel security. The new passport, introduced to honor the alliance of Sahel states, which includes Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, replaces the French firm Adimia with China's MTech as the new technical partner. Unveiled in Bamako by Security Minister Major General Daoul Mohamedine, the passport meets international aviation standards and includes an electronic chip with fingerprints and a photo for stronger security. Authorities say the move strengthens technological sovereignty and symbolizes closer integration among AES nations. The first passports were handed over in Bamako, where citizens praised the speed and efficiency of the new system. The government says details on application procedures will be made public in the coming days. Elsewhere, the National Port Authority of Liberia has unveiled a strategic plan-styled reset. The 5-year plan, which will run from 2025 to 2030, is with the goal of transforming the nation's port system into a leading trade and logistics hub in West Africa. The $550 million initiative promises to modernize infrastructure, streamline operations, and boost economic growth, signaling Liberia's commitment to becoming a key player in regional and international trade. From Monrovia, WADR's Abraham Parker reports.
At the launching ceremony, NPA Managing Director Sekou Dukle said the 5-year plan will modernize infrastructure, strengthen governance, enhance efficiency, and rebuild public confidence in the port system. He said a dedicated port infrastructure investment fund allocating 15 to 20% of annual revenue will finance critical development and modernization projects.
The NPA is currently investing in automation, digitization, and workforce development to remove bottlenecks and make transaction easier and faster across all of our ports.
In remarks, Liberia's Finance Minister Augustin Gaffon highlighted the reset plan's potential to unlock economic opportunities and attract foreign investment. The National Port Authority says it is actively seeking partnerships with government agencies, private sector entities, and international development organizations to ensure the successful implementation of the strategic plan estimated at $550 million. For Newslink on WADR, April Parker, Monrovia.
Now here in Senegal, media professionals from over 23 countries, including journalists, technicians, and regulators, are discussing the new media challenges and proposing achievable redress. The four-day event, which enters its second day this Tuesday, marks the inaugural edition of Africa's International Media Fair, hosted by the Senegalese government. Held under the theme, Africa Faces New Media Challenges, the fair aims to strengthen Africa's media ecosystem and to promote an authentic African narrative. This event comes at a time when misinformation continues to endanger press freedom and access to information on the continent. At the conclusion of the event on Thursday, October 30, government representatives are expected to sign a series of commitments to ensure the training and professionalization of journalists, encourage the production of African content, and restore trust between citizens and the media.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, let's take you back to Cote d'Ivoire, where President Alassane Ouattara has secured a landslide victory in the just concluded presidential election, winning more than 89% of the votes, according to the Independent Electoral Commission. The announcement, however, has sparked a wave of mixed reactions across the country, with supporters celebrating what they call a vote of confidence in Ouattara's leadership, while sections of the opposition and civil society raise concerns about democratic space and political inclusiveness. For many, while Ouattara's victory doesn't come as a surprise, however, others, like Austin Agbe, Wadima's liaison lead to ECOWAS, feels it's time for opposition to re-strategize.
I think the opposition should accept the result and move on. The difference in the margin is too much. There was really no opposition in the election. It was an outright win for Alassane Ouattara. Whether they like him or not, I think it's too late for opposition should stop. They should avoid any form of protesting, because the opposition literally did not participate in that election. You cannot boycott an election that you cannot fight in an election that you did not participate in. It's clear evidence that the opposition pulled out from the process. Look at the margin of vote. There's no proximity, and I think the opposition should just relax, organize ahead of the next elections, and ensure that Ouattara does not change the constitution, creating another third term bid, or removing the clause of term limit from the constitution. It's about time that opposition just organize themselves and ensure that moral courage does exist in the constitution, the Ivorian constitution. Never again should there be any review or reform that removes the term limit.
Indeed, Mr. Austin, but are there lessons to be learned, especially for oppositions in Cote d'Ivoire and perhaps other countries in the sub-region going into elections?
Lots of lessons for other countries in the region. Lots of lessons, particularly countries with upcoming elections, maybe whether it's going to be this year or next year. For instance, in Benin, hopefully the election will be sometime in April next year. Guinea-Bissau, we don't know when the election will hold, or in Guinea itself, which election we're hoping will be in December. Opposition political party should participate in the process. If you boycott the process, then do not argue in the process. You either boycott and go to court so that the process is suspended and the views that you have atomized are raised. Don't complain later when you boycott an election. It will be unfair that you boycott an election and then you are organizing protests. That is what we, in our local parlors, we say medicine after death. Elections are coming in many parts of the sub-region. Whether it's going to be in Nigeria 2027, opposition must organize. Whether you call it a one-party state in Nigeria, with what opposition are already talking about, that Nigeria is heading towards a one-party state, but there are opposition. Do not boycott the election. Organize and mobilize citizens. Look at the Cote d'Ivoire election. In many parts, particularly in Babo's area, where voters did not turn up. But again, we need to also verify that number, that about 4 million Ivorians turn out to vote. Can that be true? Those are another fact. I'm not sure of any organization that ran PVT, parallel voter tabulation. I'm not too sure. But we still need to investigate whether the total number of turnout is actually can be classified as correct. 4 million plus. That's a huge number from where Ouattara had called over 3 million. It's important to check that, because in many parts, even in the capital city, turnout was also not very high. In the other regions, in many parts of the regions, turnout was low. I think citizens were generally, apart in that election was clear. That you have more than 50% of turnout is something that we should need to talk about. Is that correct? And that should only be the only argument. Otherwise, opposition should not protest against this election. They did not participate in it.
Austin Aigbe is Wadima's liaison lead to ECOWAS. Now here comes Christopher Aticho with the latest in the world of sports. Good evening, Chris.
Augustine, good evening. How are you?
I'm okay.
Right, so in the world of sports this evening, the Total Energies CAF Women's African Cup of Nations qualifiers are underway ahead of the 15th edition that will bring together the best women's football teams in Africa. Morocco, the host nation, Zambia, Tanzania, Malawi, Algeria, Nigeria, Ghana, and Burkina Faso have already booked their place ahead of next year's tournament. Now, the final phase of the competition is structured into 3 groups of 4 teams. The top 2 teams from each group will qualify directly from the quarterfinals, along with 2 best third-place teams. From this stage, the competition adopts a knockout format leading up to the finals, where the winner will be crowned. Also tonight, Morocco's under-17 women's team faces a bigger test yet again this evening as they take on defending champions Korea DPR in the round of 16 at the FIFA Under-17 Women's Cup. Kickoff time is exactly 8 p.m. local time at the Olympic Stadium in Rabat. The Atlas Lionesses booked their place in the knockout stage as one of the best third-place teams, following a spirited 3-1 victory over Costa Rica that reignited hopes and thrilled a capacity crowd. But the attacks now get tougher. Korea DPR stormed through the group stage, scoring freely and conceding just 1, a display of dominance and that underlines their titled credentials. So tonight all eyes will be on how Morocco's young side handles the pressure and use home support to their advantage. And that ends sports this evening, Augustine.
Thank you, Chris, for the latest in the world of sports. That brings us to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and special thanks to Falilu Sow and Ismaila Kamara for the technical support. Do connect with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Curley. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.